Hi everyone, welcome to Art on the Creek. My name is Anne and we are in my home studio in Parker, Colorado, and I'm so glad you've decided to join us today. We are going to have our beginning watercolor lesson number 5. I have a playlist that I will put in the description of this video of all of the beginner watercolor lessons. This is the second round of 15, and there's already 15 up there plus the 4 that we've done for this round. You don't have to do them in any order. They're completely free. You can use whatever supplies you have on hand, but I do have a recommended supply list down in the description. So if you're ready, let's go paint an avocado. Here we go. Here is the reference photo we're going to use today. I found this one on Unsplash, which is a great source for artists for royalty-free images. This one was submitted by Irene Credentis, and it is not required that you cite the photographer, but it's a nice courtesy. So let's go ahead and get started. I am using our recommended supplies of the Paul Rubens watercolor set, as well as this Paul Rubens cold press watercolor block. It's 5x7. I wanted to choose this size for you guys because I think it's a little bit less overwhelming than some of the bigger sizes, and they're easy to frame. So if you want to make a card out of it and mail it to someone, or if you want to frame it and hang it in your kitchen, easy peasy. I think what I'm going to do here is clean off my paints, and then we can go ahead and get started. There we go. Today, instead of paper towels, I'm just using an old t-shirt that I have cut up, and I'm going to go ahead and spritz some water on my paints just to get them ready. That's not required. You don't really have to do that, but if you're in a drier climate, you might want to. These Paul Rubens paints really do re-wet pretty easily, though. That's one of the reasons I love them, and the colors are so vibrant. I mean, you can see just by looking at the pans there how they really just jump out at you. I've got a little piece of the page before that's still stuck on there, so I'm picking that off. And now let's put some tape around the edge of our painting. This is also something you don't have to do, but I really like doing it for something like this because we're going to have kind of a pop art feel to our avocado when we're done. And I really like the crisp white border that something like this can achieve. You don't have to use washi tape. You can use painter's tape that you find at the hardware store. I recommend the kind that you get for delicate surfaces. Sometimes it's purple, sometimes it's green. Just read the tape before you get it and make sure you're getting one that will work. You can also buy artist's tape. And when you put it down, make sure you have a good adherence, even though it's low tack. You want to make sure that that tape is going to stay put, because what we're going to do is we're going to fill that area with a wash, and we don't want it to run into the white border. If it does, we can fix it, no problem, but better to stop a problem before it starts. Just sharpen my pencil a little bit there, and the pencil I'm using today, I use whatever pencil is within reach, to be honest with you. I just recommend a Click pencil for something like this. You know, really, you can draw for watercolor with any pencil whatsoever. You could use a watercolor pencil too if you wanted to. This one is a Faber-Castell 2.5B. I actually like it because it's quite comfortable. It has little grip nubbies on it that are kind of a textured drop of paint, I think, and it's a triangular shape, so it's just very comfortable to use. We're going to put a diagonal line just like there was in the reference photo, but I'm going to change that up. I think I really want this to jump off the page and be an exciting, really vibrant painting that you can hang in your kitchen and just really get some energy going. If you wanted to change the color of the background, of course, you could do that, or you could leave no background at all. But this is the way it's set up. I really like the way that she laid out this photo, so I thought we could use that today. I'm just kind of eyeballing these avocados, and you can see as I'm drawing it, I ended up changing it a little bit because really it is one avocado cut in half. So truly, these would be absolutely symmetrical. And of course, I'm not going to be able to draw them that way. So that's why I'm going to provide you with the photo itself that you can print off and then trace. And then what I like to do after it's traced is I trace it with Sharpie on a separate sheet of paper, just regular copy paper. And then I put that under my watercolor paper over a light source, and then you can just go ahead and trace right there on your watercolor paper. So to do that, you would have to take it off of the block, and I'm not sure about size with this. If you need to resize it, maybe you can figure out how to do that on your printer. I do not have that knowledge. So my apologies if the size isn't quite right for you for this 5x7, but perhaps you can just kind of eyeball it like I did. Now I'm going to go in with my kneaded eraser and just kind of take away some of these lines that I don't want. When you're drawing this, think of the shapes. I mean, you know it's an avocado shape, obviously, but it's also kind of the shape of an egg. It's kind of a squashed oval, however you want to think of it, whatever tells your brain the right way to put the pencil down. You know, it's easiest when we paint to take our subject and divide it up into other shapes. Now, we don't want that inside pit area to be 100% symmetrical with the walls of the edge of the avocado. So you'll see that I'll go in and change the shapes just a little bit before we get to painting. But I think that one of the most important things you can do when you are beginning watercolor is go ahead and practice your drawing skills. A good painting starts with a good drawing. And even if you just spend some time in the evenings in front of the TV just with the least expensive sketchbook you can find. I found one at Walmart for less than $2. It was $1.97. And I have a tendency to keep those under my coffee table with some pencils, and I will just sketch at night. I will just sketch shapes. I tend to sketch the people in whatever movie I'm watching, but when I very first started doing that, when I was a beginner artist, I would just sketch shapes. I would sketch balls and cylinders, 3D shapes, and try to get their form. And that is something that I can tell you is the best practice that I ever had, because there is nothing that will make you a better artist than practice. And this particular painting is really, really forgiving, so it's going to be very easy for us to have some good success right out of the bat. Out of the bat? No, out of the box. Out of the box. Oh my goodness, I don't even know my own idioms. Okay, so here we go. We're going to just start painting these, and the colors that are listed. Let me get my my correct reference sheet here for you, because I've changed the names of my colors. But we're going to use that third brown from the end, and they call that one a burnt sienna. It's really pretty dark for a burnt sienna, but I'm going to go ahead and use that one because I want to get my darkest values in first. So if you are using this set, the first thing you're going to want to do with your pit is to go in with that burnt sienna and then come back in with the umber on top of it. If you're using just about any other watercolor set, it would be the opposite of that. Go in with your umber first and then follow it with that burnt sienna, because you want the lighter on top of the darker. So the naming was just a little bit quirky on this particular set, but you know what? We can deal with it. But if you're using any other set, start with the burnt umber. And now, rather than to use the green right off, I want to mix a green, because we're going to have to mix a green for the peel. So when you're painting, you always want to mix whatever colors you can, because then you can adjust them, add a little more of this one, a little more of that one, and use them elsewhere in your painting, and your painting will be much more cohesive. So the bigger puddle there, I've mixed some ultramarine blue with the warm yellow, which they call cadmium yellow medium. And I've also mixed a puddle, the smaller puddle there, of the yellow green with that same warm yellow, the cad yellow medium. And what I'm doing is I'm going to do the flesh of the avocado first. I've started with our number 4 round. I think that this is a small enough area that this brush will be good for you. The one thing you'll see me do is continually pull out more paint. You might want to go ahead and mix more than I've mixed here. Now that big pile in the middle, that should be a sufficient quantity, but that little pile up top, if you are brand new to watercolor, go ahead and mix yourself just a little bit more. And you're going to want to make it the consistency of, about 2% milk. Now we're going to go into that slightly darker version, the one that we mixed with the ultramarine and the cadmium yellow medium. And we're going to add some wet on wet techniques to get a little bit of shading started on our avocado. Now we want to do this right away when we've just applied the flesh tone, because we want to go in with this same level of wetness so that we don't get any backruns. And we're just going around the inside of the pit area there, the little divot where the pit was, and then around the edge. And now I'm going to mix more of that, the yellow green with the cadmium yellow medium, and now we can do the other avocado. So just the same thing, just going in and trying to get the flesh down, and just here you want to be really careful though not to get near that pit. If it makes you nervous, you can go ahead and wait until it's completely dry and then do the second half of the avocado. or you can dry it with a heat tool. So the thing is, you just don't want that brown to run into the green. So you just want to be very, very careful. Now, if you want to practice your brush control, this is a good way to practice it, is to go ahead and get that as close as you can without having that brown run in. And then you see I touched that to test how dry it was, and actually that turned out to be a little bit of an advantage for me because I put a little drop of burnt sienna in there, and we'll get to that. So that's kind of that little thing that happened there on the pit is kind of a preview of what's going to happen here in the next couple of minutes. So we're just continuing to fill in that flesh color, and now we'll go in with that medium green that we've mixed and do exactly the same thing. When we look at our reference photo, or if you've ever cut an avocado in half, you probably know very well that the skin is a very dark, dark green, and then right next to the skin, the avocado is just a little bit darker, and the flesh itself is just a little bit lighter. Excuse me, I need to clear my throat. There we go. Sorry about that, guys. I really haven't talked that much today, and that's just Anne in the morning. And now I'm going to go in and mix just a little bit more of that darker green, same colors, the ultramarine blue, and just a little bit more of that warm yellow. And we're just going around again. Now this is wet on damp because it's had a chance to start drying, but it's not completely dry yet. So what this will do is it will give us a more defined edge for that color variation in the flesh of the avocado, but it will also continue to give us a soft edge. So basically just repeat what you did before. Here we want to go in about halfway and create a left-facing crescent shape, and then very, very lightly go around the other edge, and that will help to define those edges. It won't look as defined as it does right now when it dries. We always need to remember that watercolor dries a couple of shades lighter than when we put it down. And already you can see, as we're working on the second avocado, if you look up at the other one where the pit housing is, that little divot, it's already started to get lighter and blend in. Now we want to make sure that we go around the left side of the pit on this one with that darker green, because there's going to be a little bit of a shadow. We're just very, very lightly going around the right side, but then on the left we're going to make that line ever so slightly thicker. So it's just very, very slight, but we'll be able to tell the difference when it's done. And now we're just going to dry this. So let's just either walk away from our paintings, or you can use a heat tool like this one to get it dry. Make sure your painting is completely dry before you go on with this next step. Let's focus on that pit now. We're going to go into the burnt sienna, is what they call they call umber. I'm sorry, I keep confusing you guys. I would label these exactly differently. I would call this one burnt sienna, and I would call the other one umber. But this is color number A334 in your Paul Rubens set. So I hope I haven't confused you. It is in the Paul Rubens set, it's the burnt sienna first, followed by the umber. If you're using any other set, it would be the opposite of that. The umber first, the darker color first, followed with the burnt sienna. And now we've covered the entire pit with a layer of the burnt sienna, another wash of that, and then we go in and we lift some of that off over the highlight area. And the way that that's done is we just dip our brush in the water, blot it off, and then swipe it over the area where you want to make your painting a little bit lighter. So it's kind of a firm swipe so that you can pick some of that color up, but don't go so firm that you're going to damage your paper. You just need to have a bit more pressure than you would when you were just normally painting. And now we're going to mix the color of the flesh. Now this one is just so fun because here we will pick up on what I was touching on before, how you have color mixes that you can use and repeat elsewhere in your paintings. So this is that same darker green that we mixed. You have the ultramarine and then the cad yellow light, and we are mixing in the umber with this. So if you're using any other set, it would be ultramarine, cad yellow medium. I said light, but I meant medium, sorry. And the burnt sienna. You just want to mix a reddish brown with that blue and that green, and that will give you that dark, dark green of an avocado. It might look black to you if you're just holding an avocado up, but if we were to use black on this, just straight black, it will end up looking like a magic marker outline, and that's not what we want. Now, an avocado skin has a lot of texture on the outside. So I want to zoom in so I can show you how to do this texture. You can see I've already got the line around it, and now I'm coming back with the second wash and just kind of tapping my brush along the edge so that we get a very slight bit of texture. You want to kind of keep this so that it's not uniform, and you want to just play with it a little bit just to give it a little bumpy texture. My bumps turned out to be that size. If you're using a bigger brush, your avocado skin bumps are going to be a little bit bigger than these. But you can kind of see how I'm just very gently scooting that brush around in a very uneven way. If you need a practice run on a separate sheet of paper for any of these steps, go ahead. That is absolutely okay, because sometimes you're looking at this white sheet of paper and you're making this painting and you think, oh my gosh, I want this to be perfect. Don't put that much pressure on yourself. Just continue to make whatever it is that you're making for yourself. Make it fun, make it enjoyable to paint. And you know what? If you make a mistake, it's only paper. Just tear it out and do it again. So now let's mix up another puddle of that very, very dark green. And now we'll do the same thing over here. And we'll go around, and this time I'm kind of trying to do the bumps simultaneously as when I'm doing the border. But I kind of want the inside edge to be smooth and the outside edge to be bumpy. But as I'm painting, I'm realizing that I like this shade better than the other one that I had for the open avocado up top. So I think what I'm going to do is I'll leave this one like this, and I really like the way that really made that seed pop like that. And now I'm going to take this darker mix and go around the other one. I think it was just not quite intense enough in hue, and it's just the value of it was just kind of a lighter mix, more of an olive green really than this dark green that I wanted. And when I'm looking at it here on the palette, I can see that there's definitely a lot more blue in it. So that might be a little cue for you to just have mostly blue, then a little bit of the yellow and a little bit of your whatever brown you're using, whether it's umber or burnt sienna. Now, normally in a painting, this is about the time where it goes through the ugly phase. But this one is so fun because these avocados really don't have an ugly phase. They're just kind of a lot of fun to paint. I'm going back in with the darker brown, which in this one, again, it's the A333. They call it a burnt sienna. And I'm just kind of painting a little bit heavier on the left and bottom of the seed, and then just kind of going up toward the center to create some striations in that peel that's on the seed. And then I put a little dot of that brown down at the bottom where the pit used to be. And I'm going in with some of that lighter green and just kind of defining that edge on the right-hand side there of that divot where the pit was. And then I'm just spreading that around the surface of the flesh so that I don't have any strange hard lines. Anytime you go over an area with a wash in watercolor, you might want to be sure and just check to make sure that you've got the correct amount of water level going on all the time. Because if you don't, you can come up with some real uneven looks. Now, sometimes that's what you want to do, but in this case, we want to keep it pretty smooth. It's kind of interesting to have a little bit of texture in there, so we'll just play with it. But if you want it to be absolutely smooth, make sure that your washes are okay. Now, as I'm drying that, I'm noticing I don't like the little divot where I put the brown for where the seed used to be. So I just got a wet brush and agitated it a little, pressed it with my thumb, and now I'm just tapping in a very, very little bit of the lighter brown. And that way I can make it look just a tiny bit more natural. So let's get this dry and we'll move on to the next step. Here's where we're going to have some real fun with this. I am going in, first of all, with the violet shade. It's the more warm purple. Any kind of reddish purple that you have, that would be perfect for this. Green and purple are great opposites, and that way you can create a lot of energy in your painting. And by opposites, I mean they lie opposite each other on the color wheel. It will help you create a lot of dynamic energy, and it just makes for a great eye-catching painting. So I'm making a pretty good sized puddle of this because that diagonal line that we drew in the beginning, we're going to paint one side of the painting with that. And what I want to do first, because I don't trust the steadiness of my hand, is I'm going to go ahead and tape on that line. Now, when I made my line, I realized I didn't get one corner. I didn't exactly go corner to corner, and that's okay. You do whatever you need to do. Actually, in the painting, it's in the reference photo, it's not really corner to corner, so you could tip it at a different angle if you want to. But yeah, it's just to suggest what's going on. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I think I have my bottom left corner as a match, and then I scooted it in a bit on the top. But that's okay. We'll chalk that up to senior citizen eyeballs. So let's go in with that violet now, and I have switched to my number 6 round. If you wanted to, you could use your stroke brush for this. But I want to show you this process by using a number 6 round because I want to show you, I'm going to intentionally run into a problem here and I'm going to show you how to fix it. So we want to be careful around those edges. Remember, we have the edge of our avocado is not entirely smooth. It's a little bit bumpy. And I'm just making sure that I continually have enough pigment. And now right here, it's gotten very, very, there's a lot of pigment there. And the level of wetness, the consistency of that pigment is a little bit different than what I've already put down. So just kind of keep your eyes on the right-hand side of the painting because you will see a back run start. And I'm going to show you how to fix that. And the way that those happen are when you have a level of water in your paint that's not consistent with whatever paint you've already put down. When I went in on that right-hand side, I had a thinner wash. I had more water in it. And there you can kind of see it starting now, that back run where it's lighter there along the tape on the right edge. It's just starting to creep back in. Now you sometimes won't notice it until you start to dry, but here's where I really help that back run along. This is where I'm really helping the back run to happen. So I want to show you what happens when you get into a situation like this and how to fix it. So there, we've got everything covered, and I want to make sure that we've got all of those edges covered, all the pigment down there, and keep watching that area along the right edge of our triangle there, and you'll continue to see that water just kind of creep in from the side. It's a little bit of a slow transformation, but you can really see it now. You can see how that back run is coming in. It kind of looks like if you were to set a book in water and the water seeps up on the edge of the page. So here's what we do before we've got it completely dry, because that's about when you're going to see it, is when you start drying it, or when you walk away and you come back and you've got this back run. Well, you can just put another wash over it. You want to catch this before it's completely dry, but we're going to go in with another wash and kind of try and go quickly enough so that we can make this a consistent level of moisture throughout the purple part that we're working on here. Whenever you have inconsistencies in your water level, that's where you can really run into some trouble with your watercolor, because watercolor wants to go wherever there's water. And if there's more water in one place than there is another place, then that's where your watercolor is going to want to creep to. So just remember that when you're painting, and you want to try and keep all of those moisture levels pretty consistent. As this gets dry along that diagonal edge, we can go ahead and peel that washi tape off. And you can save it if you want to, because we're just going to carefully place it on the purple side now so that we can fill in the other side of our avocado. And to do this, I'm turning the tape around. I've already got flecks of purple paint on the side there, on the top side of it, and I'm trying to keep the clean edge down. I want to come in just a hair so that I don't have any white space. So you might have to pick it up and redo it, but I was downright impressed with myself that I got it exactly where I wanted it on the first try. That, my friends, is not common. I'm not that skilled. So that was just kind of a gift. I will take that and run with it. The next color that we're going to go in on the other side is another one that's going to provide some good energy and tension. This is kind of an orange color. It's cadmium red light. Purple and orange are really good colors to show some tension, and with that diagonal line, that's a good indicator of energy. And I just think that avocados, when do we eat avocados? Well, for me here in Colorado, we eat them most often whenever we're cooking Mexican food, and that is just about every other day in my house. So all of those bright, vibrant colors that are so common to Mexico and all the other Latin American countries, I wanted to accentuate that in this painting, because I think this would be really cool to hang in your kitchen, guys. I think it would be so much fun. In fact, you can make this as big as you want and really have fun with it. Same thing, we're going around with a number 6 brush and just trying to keep this wash evenly wet, and this time we're not going to have a back run, so you can see how you kind of have to work a little bit quickly with this, and you really just kind of have to have that paint ready to go. So another tip that I'm going to reinforce to you, I've already mentioned it once before, but mix yourself enough paint. That's always kind of hard to judge, and don't worry if you mix too much, because you can always, like right there, go in and mix just a touch more if you don't mix enough. Or if you've mixed too much, that's still perfectly good pigment. That purple right up there, even though I'm not going to use it again on this painting, I'll be able to use it again the next time I paint. All you have to do is get it wet. It's just simply out of the pan. So when I started this painting, I did clean up the paints that I had in there before because they weren't quite the right color family. But if I were painting something that would have worked with that, you can certainly use the paint in your palette. I have a tendency to just not clean my palette. I let it stay dirty. Now, one thing I will tell you is don't close your paints until they're completely dry, because you don't want any kind of mold to grow in there. So especially if you're in a moist environment or a humid environment, leave your paints open, let them dry, even overnight, before you close them up. So now we're ready to take all of the washi tape off, and it is so satisfying. This is truly one of my favorite parts of painting, is to go ahead and use this heat tool to help release that adhesive. And even though this is an extremely light, low tack washi tape, I do like to put that heat tool just ahead of where I'm pulling so that I don't damage the paper. And the other thing you're going to want to remember when you pull any tape off is that you pull it off at a 90-degree angle to where you are, to the edge of your paper, because that will just help be a little bit more gentle. But I found that the 100% sure thing is to heat that tape up a little bit with a heat tool, and that way you can release that adhesive. Now, there's something I want to do. Now, this is not in your supply list. You can use a colored pencil to do this, but I have an 03 brush. There, you can get any brush at all. These are from Turkel. I'm not even going to put a link to this in the description. It's just any kind of 03 brush that you want to find. It doesn't even have to be this size. You can get a liner brush. You can use a colored pencil, but I'm going to go around with some more of that green. Now, I am mixing a little bit of that darkest green with the paint that I used for the flesh, and I'm just lining the edge ever so slightly. I'm kind of picking up my brush every now and then too, to just kind of leave some space. And now I'm going to go in and just darken that just a little bit in the curvature of the pit. And now this 03 brush is just not big enough to do what I want to do. So I'm going to go back to the 4. And same thing, go into kind of a medium value of the green. And I'm going to go into that indentation. Now you'll notice I'm leaving a little bit of space between where I'm painting now and that rim outline that I've just done. So now I'm going in with a wet brush and just kind of spreading that around in the space where the pit indent is so that we can have soft edges. Just trying to really get that curve the way that I want it. As long as you've shaped it like a left-facing crescent, you're going to be just fine. Putting a little bit darker here up near the top, and then I think that is just about going to do it. So let me just finesse this just a little bit more. We'll go in there with just a damp brush. And whenever I say damp brush, I know this is off camera, and I'm sorry about that, but what I'm doing is I'm dipping it in water and then blotting it off on a towel. Here's one more thing that I see needs to be done in our tweaking the painting phase, is I'm going to go in with some more of that medium green and just kind of intensify the shadow on the left side of the pit here. Now, if this were going to be realistic, we would have put shadows under the body of the avocado as well, but since it's kind of just fun pop art, I wanted to cut those shadows out of the equation and just do the shadows on the avocado itself. So now I'm going around with some water and letting that shadow line be have a soft edge, and just kind of pulling that all around the skin so that we can kind of catch it up to the other one and give it the same amount of texture. And there we go. I think we are just about done. Let's give this one more dry and then take a final look at it. I think we are good. And I've decided to title this painting the very thoughtful avocado. I don't know why I felt like I had to write a title on there. You can do whatever you want. I'm just signing my name and the month and the year. I highly recommend that you always sign your paintings and date them, and do it on the front, because you will remember where you were at that point in your art journey, no matter how many years you've got under your belt. If you would sign and date everything that you do, I guarantee you really enjoy being able to see your progress, because that's what it's all about. It's not about creating that perfect Instagram-worthy painting. It's about painting for you, doing what you like. And to get our painting off of the block, what we're going to do is use some kind of a plastic device. I've got that leaf separator and also these bone folders, and I like using these very much. And you can see I'm kind of gently coaxing it, because this particular block has some pretty intense adhesive on it. Sometimes they're a little bit inconsistent, but there's that opening on the top, and then you just stick your device down in there and slowly go around the edge. I don't recommend using a metal palette knife for this, because you do run the risk of leaving some metal scratch marks on the page, the next page, the page that you're leaving behind. And those don't come up, and they're very easy to leave and difficult to remove. So you don't want to deal with those on your next painting. And now I'm just picking off little threads of adhesive here. I don't know about you guys, but that was a really fun way to spend a half an hour. And I hope that you really enjoyed it. I hope that you ended up feeling relaxed and accomplished. And I hope that you enjoy the way your avocado painting turned out. If you enjoy content like this, please consider sharing this video with your friends or giving it a like, subscribing, and also I've got memberships. Instead of a Patreon, I've decided to do some memberships on my channel. So if that's something that interests you, if you'd like some more exclusive content that is kind of a bonus content, not available to the general public, I will still continue to do the free lessons like this. But if you want something more, click below in the description and learn more about becoming a member of Art on the Creek. It's just like a Patreon, but you can do it right here on YouTube, and of course, nothing is required. You'll still have access to all of these free tutorials and reviews, and I am thrilled that you were here with me today. Have a wonderful week, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Bye now.